Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Pandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapatakamalам Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णाप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैतात् गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Haribo. So today we read chapter 26, the Brahmana Sudama benedicted by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the super soul of all living entities, knows very well everyone's heart. He is especially inclined to the Brahmana devotees. Lord Krishna is also called Brahmanya Deva, which means that he is worshipped by the Brahmanas. Therefore, it is understood that the devotee who is fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already acquired the position of a Brahmana. Without becoming a Brahmana, one cannot approach the Supreme Brahman, Lord Krishna. Krishna is especially concerned with vanquishing the distress of his devotees, and he is the only shelter of pure devotees. Lord Krishna was engaged for a long time in talking with Sudama Vipra about their past association. Then, just to enjoy the company of an old friend, Lord Krishna began to smile and ask, "My dear friend, what have you brought for me? Has your wife given you some nice eatable for me?" While he was addressing his friend, Lord Krishna was looking upon him and smiling with great love. He continued, "My dear friend, you must have brought some presentation for me from your home." Lord Krishna knew that Sudama was hesitating to present him the paltry chipped rice, which was actually unfit for his eating, and understanding the mind of Sudama Vipra, the Lord said, "My dear friend, certainly I am not in need of anything, but if my devotee gives me something as an offering of love, even though it may be very insignificant, I accept it with great pleasure. On the other hand, if a person is not a devotee, even though he may offer me very valuable things, I do not like to accept them. I actually accept only things which are offered to me in devotion and love. Otherwise, however valuable the thing may be, I do not accept it. If my pure devotee offers me even the most insignificant things, a little flower, a little piece of leaf, a little water, but saturates the offering in devotional love, then I not only gladly accept such an offering, but I eat it with great pleasure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Lord Krishna assured Sudama Vipra that he would be very glad to accept the chipped rice which he had brought from home. Yet, out of great shyness, Sudama Vipra hesitated to present it to the Lord. He was thinking, how can I offer such insignificant things to Krishna? and he simply bowed his head. Lord Krishna, the Super Soul, knows everything in everyone's heart. He knows everyone's determination and everyone's want. He knew, therefore, the reason for Sudama Vipra's coming to him. He knew that driven by extreme poverty, he had come there at the request of his wife, thinking of Sudama as his very dear class friend. He knew that Sudama's love for him as a friend was never tainted by any desire for material benefit. Krishna thought, Sudama has not come asking anything from me, but being obliged by the request of his wife, he has come to see me just to please her. Lord Krishna, therefore, decided that he would give more material opulence to Sudama Vipra than could be imagined even by the king of heaven. He then snatched the bundle of chipped rice, which was hanging on the shoulder of the poor Brahmana, stacked in one corner of his wrapper, and said, What is this, my dear friend? You have brought me nice, palatable chipped rice. He encouraged Sudama Vipra, saying, I consider that this quantity of chipped rice will not only satisfy me, but will satisfy the whole creation. It is understood from this statement that source of everything, is the root of the entire creation. As watering the root of a tree immediately distributes water to every part of the tree, so an offering made to Krishna, or any action done for Krishna, is to be considered the highest welfare work for everyone, because the benefit of such an offering is distributed throughout the creation. Love for Krishna becomes distributed to all living entities. While Lord Krishna was speaking to Sudama Vipra, he ate one morsel of chipped rice from his mandal, and when he attempted to eat a second morsel, Rukmini Devi, who is the goddess of fortune herself, checked the Lord by catching hold of his hand. After touching the hand of Krishna, Rukmini said, My dear Lord, this one morsel of chipped rice is sufficient to cause him who offered it to become very opulent in this life and to continue his opulence in the next life. My Lord, you are so kind to your devotee that even this one morsel of chipped rice pleases you very greatly, and your pleasure assures the devotee opulence both in this life and in the next. This indicates that when food is offered to Lord Krishna with love and devotion, when he is pleased and accepts it from devotee, Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, becomes so greatly obliged to the devotee that she has to personally go to the devotee's home to turn it into the most opulent home in the world. If one feeds Narayana sumptuously, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, automatically becomes a guest in one's house, which means that one's home becomes opulent. The learned Brahmana, Sudama, passed that night at the house of Lord Krishna, and while he was there, he felt as if he were living in the Vaikuntha planet. Actually, he was living in Vaikuntha because wherever Lord Krishna, the original Narayana, and Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, live is not different from the spiritual planet Vaikuntha Loga. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Pranjal Prabhu, your turn. Haribol, I can read also. The learned Brahmana Sudama did not appear to have received anything substantial from Lord Krishna while he was at his place, and yet he did not ask anything from the Lord. The next morning he started for his home, thinking always about his reception by Krishna, and thus he became merged in transcendental bliss. All the way home he was simply remembering the dealings of Lord Krishna, and he was feeling very happy to have seen the Lord. The Brahmana began to think as follows. It is most pleasurable to see Lord Krishna, who is most devoted to the Brahmanas, how great a lover he is of the Brahminical culture. He is the supreme Brahman himself, yet he reciprocates with the Brahmanas. He also respects the Brahmanas so much that he embraced to his chest a poor Brahmana like me, although he never embraces anyone to his chest except the goddess of fortune. How can there be any comparison between me, a poor, sinful Brahmana, and the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is the only shelter of the goddess of fortune? And yet, considering me as a Brahmana, he embraced me with heartfelt pleasure in his two transcendental arms. Lord Krishna was so kind to me that he allowed me to sit down on the same bedstead where the goddess of fortune lies down. He considered me to be his real brother. How can I appreciate my obligation to him When I was tired, Srimati Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, began to fan me, holding the chamara whisk in her own hand. He never considered her exalted position as the first queen of Lord Krishna. I was rendered service by the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of his high regard for the Brahmanas, and by massaging my legs and feeding me with his own hand, he practically worshipped me. Aspiring for elevation to the heavenly planets, or liberation, or all kinds of material opulences, or perfection in the mystic yoga powers, everyone throughout the universe worships the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Yet the Lord was so kind to me that he did not give me a farthing, knowing very well that I am a poverty-stricken man who, if I got some money, might become puffed up and mad after material opulence, and so forget him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What does it go? The statement of the Brahmana Sudama is correct. An ordinary man who is very poor and prays to the Lord for benediction in material things, and who somehow or other becomes richer in material opulence, immediately forgets his obligation to the Lord. Therefore, the Lord does not offer opulences to his devotee unless the devotee is thoroughly destitute. Rather, if a neophyte devotee serves the Lord very sincerely and at the same time wants material opulence, the Lord keeps him from obtaining it. Thinking in this way, the learned Brahmana gradually reached his own home. But on reaching there, he saw that everything was wonderfully changed. He saw that in the place of his cottage there were big palaces made of valuable stones and jewels, glittering like the sun, moon, and rays of fire. Not only were there big palaces, but at intervals there were beautifully decorated parks in which many beautiful men and women were strolling. In those parks there were nice lakes full of lotus flowers and beautiful lilies, and there were flocks of multicolored birds. Seeing the wonderful conversion of his native place, the Brahmana began to think to himself, how am I seeing all these changes? Does this place belong to me or to someone else? If it is the same place where I used to live, then how has it so wonderfully changed? While the learned Brahmana was considering this, a group of beautiful men and women with features resembling those of the demigods, accompanied by musical chanters, approached to welcome him. All were singing auspicious songs. The wife of the Brahmana became very glad on hearing the tidings of her husband's arrival, and with great haste she also came out of the palace. The Brahmana's wife appeared so beautiful that it seemed as if the goddess of fortune herself had come to receive him. As soon as she saw her husband present before her, tears of joy began to fall from her eyes, and her voice became so choked up that she could not even address her husband. She simply closed her eyes in ecstasy, but with great love and affection she bowed down before her husband, and within herself she thought of embracing him. She was fully decorated with a gold necklace and ornaments, and while standing among the maid servants, she appeared like the wife of a demigod, just alighting from an airplane. The Brahmana was surprised to see his wife so beautiful, and in great affection, and without saying a word, he entered the palace with his wife. When the Brahmana entered his personal apartment in the palace, he saw that it was not an apartment, but the residence of the king of heaven. The palace was surrounded by many columns of jewels. The couches and the bedsteads were made of ivory, bedecked with gold and jewels, and the bedding was as white as the foam of milk and as soft as lotus flower. There were many whisks hanging from the golden rods, and many golden thrones with sitting cushions as soft as the lotus flower. In various places there were velvet and silken canopies with laces of pearls hanging all around. The structure of the building was standing on first-class transparent marble with engravings made of emerald stones. All the women in the palace were carrying lamps made of valuable jewels. The flames and the jewels combined to produce a wonderfully brilliant light. When the Brahmana saw his position suddenly changed to one of opulence, and when he could not determine the cause for such a sudden change, he began to consider very gravely how it had happened.
Hare Krishna. He thus began to think. Once again. He thus began to think, from the beginning of my life, I have been extremely poverty-stricken. So what could be the cause of such great and sudden opulence? I do not find any cause other than the all-merciful glance of my friend Lord Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty. Certainly, these are gifts of Lord Krishna's causeless mercy. The Lord is self-sufficient, the husband of the goddess of fortune, and thus he is always full with six opulences. He can understand the mind of his devotee, and he sumptuously fulfills the devotee's desires. All these are acts of my friend Lord Krishna. My beautiful dark friend Krishna is far more liberal than the cloud which can fill up the great ocean with water without disturbing the cultivator with rain during the day. The cloud brings liberal rain at night just to satisfy him. And yet, when the cultivator wakes up in the morning, he considers that it has not rained enough. Similarly, the Lord fulfills the desires of everyone according to his position, and yet one who is not in Krishna consciousness considers all the gifts of the Lord to be less than his desire. On the other hand, when the Lord receives a little thing in love and affection from his devotee, he considers it a great and valuable gift. The vivid example is myself. I simply offered him a morsel of chipped rice, and in exchange he gave me opulences greater than the opulence of the King of Heaven. What the devotee actually offers to the Lord is not needed by the Lord. He is self-sufficient. If the devotee offers something to the Lord, it acts for his own interest because whatever a devotee offers to the Lord comes back in quantity 1,000,000 times greater than what was offered. One does not become a loser by giving to the Lord, but he becomes a gainer by millions of times. The Brahmana, feeling great obligation to Krishna, thought, I pray to have the friendship of Lord Krishna and to engage in his service and to surrender fully unto him in love and affection, life after life. I do not want any opulence. I only desire not to forget his service. I simply wish to be associated with his pure devotees. May my mind and activities be always engaged in his service. The unborn Supreme Person of Godhead, Krishna, knows that many great personalities have fallen from their positions because of extravagant opulence. Therefore, even when his devotees ask for some opulence from him, the Lord sometimes does not give it. He is very cautious about his devotees because the devotee in an immature position of devotional service may, if offered great opulence, fall from his position due to being in the material world. The Lord does not offer opulences to him. This is another manifestation of the causeless mercy of the Lord upon his devotees. His first interest is that the devotee may not fall. He is exactly like a well-wishing father who does not give much wealth into the hand of his immature son, but who, when the son is grown up and knows how to spend money, gives him the whole treasury house. The learned Brahmana thus concluded that whatever opulences he had received from the Lord should not be used for his extravagant sense gratification, but for the service of the Lord. The Brahmana accepted his newly acquired opulence, but he did so in a spirit of renunciation, unattached to sense gratification, and thus he lived very peacefully with his wife, enjoying all the facilities of opulence as prasadam of the Lord. He enjoyed varieties of foodstuffs by offering it to the Lord and then taking it as prasadam. Similarly, if by the grace of the Lord we get such opulences as material wealth, fame, power, education, and beauty, it is our duty to consider that they are all gifts of the Lord and must be used for his service, not for our sense enjoyment. The learned Brahmana remained in that position, and instead of deteriorating due to great opulence, his love and affection for Lord Krishna increased day after day. Material opulence can be the cause of degradation and also the cause of elevation, according to the purpose for which it is used. If opulence is used for sense gratification, it is the cause of degradation, and if it is used for the service of the Lord, it is the cause of elevation. It is evident from Lord Krishna's dealing with Sudama Vipra that the Supreme Person of Godhead is very pleased with a person who is possessed of Brahminical qualities. A qualified Brahmana like Sudama Vipra is naturally a devotee of Lord Krishna. Therefore, it is said, Brahmano Vaishnavaha. A Brahmana is a Vaishnava, or sometimes it is said Brahmanaha Panditaha. Pandit means a highly learned person. A Brahmana cannot be foolish or uneducated. Therefore, there are two divisions of Brahmanas, namely Vaishnavas and Pandits. Those who are simply learned are Pandits, but not yet devotees of the Lord, or Vaishnavas. Lord Krishna is not especially pleased with them. Simply the qualification of being learned Brahmana is not sufficient to attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A Brahmana must not only be well qualified according to the requirements stated in scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam, but at the same time he must be a devotee of Lord Krishna. The vivid example is Sudama Vipra. He was a qualified Brahmana, unattached to all sorts of material sense enjoyment, and at the same time a great devotee of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, the enjoyer of all sacrifices and penances, is very fond of Brahmana, like Sudama Vipra. And we have seen by the actual behavior of Lord Krishna how much he adores such a Brahmana. Therefore, the ideal stage of human perfection is to become a Brahmana Vaishnava like Sudama Vipra. Sudama Vipra realized that although Lord Krishna is unconquerable, he nevertheless agrees to be conquered by his devotees. He realized how kind Lord Krishna was to him, and he was always in trance, constantly thinking of Krishna. By such constant association with Lord Krishna, whatever darkness of material contamination was remaining within his heart was completely cleared away, and very shortly he was transferred to the spiritual kingdom, which is the goal of all saintly persons in the perfectional state of light. Shukadeva Goswami has stated that all persons who hear the story of Sudama Vipra and Lord Krishna will know how affectionate Lord Krishna is to the Brahmana devotees like Sudama. Therefore, anyone who hears this history gradually becomes qualified as Sudama Vipra, and he is thus transferred to the spiritual kingdom of Lord Krishna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 26th chapter of Krishna, the Brahmana Sudama benedicted by Lord Krishna. Hribo. Okay, now let's go to 6th prayer. चेतोदर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिकावितरणं विद्यावादूजीवनम् आनन्दं बुद्धिवर्धनं प्रतिपदां पूर्णामृतास्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्
नाम्नामकारि बहुधानि च सर्वशक्तिस्तत्रार्पिता नियमिता स्मरणेन काल वेदादृशी तव कृपा भगवन्ममापि दुर्दैवम् ईदृशाम्
तृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीया सदा हरि
जनन्न सुन्दरी कविताम्बा जगदीशकानये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवता
ऐनन्दतनुजा किङ्करां पतितां मां विषमे भवां बुधौ कृपा तव पादपङ्कजा स्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तया
नयनं किलादश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदा हृदया गिरा पुलकेर्निजितं बभूकदा तव नाम
युगायितं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्राविर्शायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे
आश्लिष्यवापादरतां नष्टमा दर्शनामर्महतं करोतु वा यदा तदा वा विददातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणनादस्तु तु स एव न
Ribo. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the starving in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end with the result?
O Govinda, feeling your separation, some considering a moment to be like 12 years or more, tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally.
रिबो श्री शिक्षास्तकम की जाय, हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जाय, पंचतत्व की जाय,
Jai,
नित्यानंद प्रभु की
Jai,
जाय, श्री
Jai,
कृष्ण चैतन्य
Jai,
महाप्रभु की जाय, जगत गुरु श्ला
Jai,
भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्ला प्रभुपद की जाय, निताय गौर
Jai,
प्रेमानंद, हरि हरि
Hari
बोल।
Bol.